So welcome everyone to our last instructional innovation workshop before spring break. Nice crowd today and beautiful weather outside. We'll be talking about Flipgrid's advanced features, which in a way will sort of continue our exploration, if you will, of Flipgrid that we started 2 weeks ago. Back then, we showed a couple things that Flipgrid is capable of in terms of class structuring, pedagogical scaffolding. There were a few things, a few examples of activities that we touched on. And today we would like to sort of continue in a similar format, in a similar fashion. That being said, we'll be switching back and forth between various activities. If you have access to Flipgrid in Chrome, it would be good to sort of dust it off now and maybe open up some tabs. This is a hands-on workshop, and it will probably work best if folks, if you guys are sort of working along and participating, producing content. So that would be it. That's all that I have by way of introduction. Do feel free to utilize the chat. Speaking of, let me just throw in the presentation one more time, and here we go. Okay, great. So let us dive right in. So last time that we were looking at Flipgrid, we were sort of exploring it through a frame of interests, hobbies that our students may have, their students may be interested in talking about, exchanging or having these exchanges, obviously, in the target language. And so what we'll do today is take another topic that is relevant, considering the time of the year and the time of the semester, and it would be the spring break. And much like, I realize I'm piggybacking on the last workshop, but much like 2 weeks ago, there are certain prerequisites that are assumed when preparing these tasks, these activities. And those prerequisites are twofold. On one hand, we have the lexical. On the other hand, we have grammatical. As far as the former, we by now hopefully have covered things like pastime and hobby vocabulary. We would also have covered vacation and maybe a little bit of travel vocabulary. As for the grammar, we will have talked about past tense in a simple aspect, either compositional or spoken or both, if your target language has both these modes. Similarly, it's not unreasonable to have covered future tense, again, simple in composition and spoken, if your language distinguishes between the two, and the verbal aspect is simple. So this is sort of the general kind of background of what we would be expecting our students to be familiar with, more or less, going into these activities. And last time we were looking at various modes of communication. There was some interpersonal, intercultural, some presentational. Today, what we will be doing is just zeroing in on presentational. And the skills that we'll cover will actually be, all four. So listening, speaking, reading, and writing, plus culture, at least initially, and then we'll see how that sort of can be bridged into Flipgrid. And as far as the learning goals are concerned, our students, we hope by the end of the day, by the end of these, the sequence of these activities, will be able to narrate what they themselves did in the past, which of course implies, first person singular narration. They will also be able to narrate or talk about their plans for the future. So again, first person singular, future tense narration. And then towards the end, we also hope that they will be able to identify and reflect on some of the, intercultural understanding, intercultural communication stuff. So, and that is in the context of vacation. So things like, why do their peer, well, it's obvious why their peers take vacation, but when do they do it? How do they do it? What is it that they, look for when planning for these things, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the theme, the topic will be spring break, and those are kind of the things that we'll be hopefully accomplishing today. And when we are thinking about, narrative, and specifically maybe starting with written narrative in the past tense, the first intuition would maybe be to, assign a traditional composition task, right? So, have a prompt and outlining the task, and have your students then respond to that prompt in an essay format, right? Um, as far as that goes, since we are in these mediated environments, as we are teaching remotely, we have a choice of the medium or genre, if you will, um, that we can tell our students to use, right? We can choose one, or maybe a combination of all of the, or allow our students to decide on their own. And they can choose from things like an essay, a blog, discussion entry, presentation, slide deck, what have you, right? So those are viable, kind of more intuitive, traditional written narrative task formats, right? One way to sort of make it more interesting, to give it more, a little bit of spin on, is to introduce Google Docs, right? Or to sort of do it through Google Docs. And this is something that many of us are using. We've done it over the summer. We've continued to do it over the fall semester and now into the spring. We are thoroughly familiar with it. Our students are also familiar with it. The platform is accessible. However, it is not entirely linear, and just bear with me here. I will expand on it in a second. It is sometimes also, or it could be difficult to differentiate between the contributions that different students make, right? And by and large, it's not very supportive of multimodal resources. So, I mean, sure, you can paste images, you can, probably implement some audio, some video, but the formatting tends to be off, and it's not very intuitive, and it requires configuring, right? So in that sense, it is a good platform, but it doesn't do exactly everything that we may want to do with our students. And to that, one sort of response would be to use Padlet, which is a, thoroughly multimodal tool. It allows us to, it supports all sorts of multimedia. And one of its many advantages is that it allows you to visually structure your collaborative written tasks, and in a linear fashion, right? And let me just demonstrate really quick to refresh you guys on what I mean by that. So if we were to, create an activity with Padlet, one of the first steps that we would perform is, choosing the grid, the layout, right? And when we're talking about a linear narrative activity, two of the grids that are particularly useful would be either the stream, or perhaps the timeline, right? And again, this is something that some of you may have already experimented with, okay? So, so much for me talking. There's also, to further illustrate the point, I've flashed out an activity that I would like to share with you. It's in English, it's about spring break. And, it is right here. Let me share the link. So I'm just gonna put it in the chat here. Okay, here you go. So clicking on this link will take you right to the activity. And the prompt is rather simple. I'm just going to read it out loud to you. Spring break this year will be very different yet again. So think of the best spring break that you've
Simon, could you make your fonts a little larger?
Yes.
Thank you.
Tell me when. Good? Okay, I trust that is good. So, so think of the best spring break you've ever had, and together with your classmates, again, a collaborative activity, write a short story describing your dream vacation, right? Try to keep the narrative in order if possible. So, in that sense, I would like you guys to now, collectively maybe take a step on it, at it, and throw in some paragraphs, maybe a sentence, a person. Of course, in your own classes, this ideally would be a little bit more scaffolded. You maybe would like to provide more directions, but since this is a workshop, I wanted to keep it vague and open. Okay, so I did start everything off. And on the first morning of my spring break, I lazily rolled out of the bed. So if you could now just take a few minutes and
Excuse me, Simon. You want people, you want the students to imagine the best
yes,
spring they
right.
could have.
I mean,
Not because it's a bit confusing as you say, well, think of the best spring break you've ever had,
mhm.
and then write a short story describing your vacation, but that's not the one you had. That's the one
uh,
you
I guess that
imagine.
could be. I see how that could be confusing.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I just wanted to be sure that that's what.
Absolutely, yeah. You can. Right. So
Especially
I
if they have to work together, I mean, they have to imagine collectively an experience that they haven't had. They can't together write something that they all experience differently and separately, and
mhm.
that's all.
Good point. Okay. Let me see if um, anything comes up. Nope, not yet. I just wanted to make sure that as we are doing this short activity, are we all using Google Chrome? Okay, thanks, Chris. Um, oh, beautiful. Okay, so yeah, and just like that, we are collaboratively creating a story um, that is linear, right? And it is obvious how linear it is, reading from the top, going to the bottom. The order of events is sort of assigned or predetermined by the order of contributions, right? But what we can do also in Padlet is we can arrange things. We can move things around by dragging and dropping the different blocks of content, which is useful and could have pedagogical applications when we are, looking into how to order things or structure things chronologically. Okay, so let me thank you for your contributions and go back to the slides. Okay, so this was an example of a collaborative written narrative in the past tense. Now, what if we stuck with collaboration and try to think of a way to do it using a different mode, so instead of written, spoken. right? And so far, and if you think about it, that it's not a very easy thing to do outside of the classroom, unless you kind of go through Canvas and create these elaborate discussion schemes where each student records a certain answer and so on and so forth. We know that this could be done a lot easier, accomplished a lot easier with Flipgrid, right? So here we are sort of taking it one step further, right? We are staying in the collaborative mode. We are swapping written for spoken, so we're still doing productive things. It's still going to be a narrative, and just to maybe tweak things a little bit more to make it even more interesting, we turn to the future, okay? And this will sort of lead us to the main topic of today's workshop. But before we get there, I wanted to invite you to take part in yet another activity here, which I will likewise share with you. And this is something that you will need Google Chrome for. Okay, so let me just paste it in the chat right here. Okay, so now everybody should have access to it. You may need to log in using your Google Columbia credentials. If you have two-factor authentication turned on, that you will need a Duo or some number to log in. But once you're here, this is what you should see. And the activity prompt is this. So we now have a good idea of what a great spring break looks like based on the past story. What are you hoping it will look like this year? Try to think about your plans for the next week, which will be spring break for us, and then share them with your classmates in a short 1-minute clip. Okay? And I started you off with my own contribution that I made yesterday. This does not have to be in a chronological order, but you can certainly, try to keep it that way. So just like with Padlet, I will give you guys a few minutes to throw in some contributions of 1 minute or less. Okay, and I'll also mute myself so you can record. Okay, maybe 1 or 2 more minutes. Okay, so we have one additional contribution by Chris. Thank you, Chris. Okay, Pascal, that's fine. We can work on it outside of the um, workshop, not a problem. Okay, so one thing that I just realized is that even though this particular activity is in the future tense, um, you don't need to stick to the future tense. In fact, if your language features a separate mode for the spoken or the conversational past and then compositional past, um, doing or having a combination where students produce a narrative in compositional past in Padlet first, and then trying to maybe replicate or doing something different, but also in narrative in the conversational past in Flipgrid, that may be something to consider. Let me refresh it one more time. Okay, so we still have 2 responses. Very good. Now, I did not specify that this needs to be in a chronological order. It could be, and let's just assume for the purpose of this activity that it is, right? So those are 2 responses. This is what you see as a student. Let me go to the instructor console. And my Spring Break 2021 is the topic. And those are sort of the 2 contributions that we have. What we could do now that we were not able to do in the past is sort of combine those 2 clips, those 2 contributions into one coherent whole. Sort of similar to what we did or what automatically happened for us right here with Padlet, right, where we had this continuous stream of a story. So let's see how we can do that. To that effect, we will be using this new feature called Mixtapes, which is located at the very, very top of the page. So let me click right here. And let us, so far I don't have any mixtapes, so I'm going to go ahead and create one. And this will be my Spring Break 2021. We can leave the join code as it has been generated. And the purpose of this clip is to collect students' plans for the upcoming week. Okay, I'm not going to have it password protected. I will go ahead and create a mixtape. Okay, and there we have it. So now, having done that, I will go back to the recent activity and go specifically to my Spring Break 2021, where I have those 2 clips. And from the actions, I will add this one to my mixtape. Got it. And I will go ahead and add this one to my mixtape too. Okay. And that's pretty much it. Now here, I wanted to also mention that virtually anything that is posted on Flipgrid, any video contribution, any audio contribution, can be likewise added to your mixtape. So it doesn't have to be just things from this particular topic. You can pick and choose, and subtract things across all of your content from different topics, different discussion threads, anything you want. But for now, let's just go back over to our mixtapes, and I'm gonna open this one up. And the order that I have these two clips in is Chris going first and myself going second. Now, for the purpose of maintaining chronology, if this is something that we want to do with our students, these things could also be arranged, right? So you see some parallels between this and Padlet. Okay, let us see what this mixtape of ours actually is. Here is the join code. Here's the link. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And while at it, I'm going to also go ahead and copy and paste it into the chat for you. There you go. This is how it generates. And, just like that, we can... This is spring break. I plan to turn off my computer and keep it that way.
In this year's spring break, I will just stay at home, maybe curl up on the couch, and I see a laser pointer. I'll chase it across the floor, maybe have some lunch, and take a cat nap.
Okay, so that was a pretty elaborate spring break suggestion, spring break layout. Again, this could be, if you have more students in class and more contributions, and you can create this longer playlist, and if each contribution is part of the story, then you can see how a coherent, in our case, future tense or past tense, narrative could emerge out of it, right? So this is just an example of activity that one could do before spring break. There isn't a whole lot of time left for that, arguably, which is why there is an activity also, that we can do similarly after spring break, that I prepared a short container for. And, this would be something similar, except for it will require your students to narrate their experiences in the past, again, conversational past, if this is something your language supports, and to share them as this sort of collage here in Flipgrid. Okay, you guys get the idea. We're not gonna do that. For the reference, I will just share the activity link with you in case you may want to check it out in the future. And this is a very easy way to, again, use this new feature of Flipgrid's mixtapes, in our case, to create not a story, but maybe a collage of all of your students' experiences, right? What makes it really convenient is that at the end of the day, when the mixtape is produced, you get a link that you can share with anyone that you want. It is a thing that it is publicly accessible. You can share it through whatever means you deem necessary. Okay, so what I will do now is move over back to the presentation.
Excuse me, Simon, since Abdul and myself were not able to save our recordings in Flipgrid, would you mind just telling us in like 2 seconds what we didn't do right?
I would have to check.
You're supposed to save the recording because I didn't see any button or instructions.
So there's usually like a little arrow in the bottom right-hand corner of the video that you're recording. Where you just click on to okay it.
Yeah, it doesn't say save specifically. I got a little confused with that too, but I just pressed that green button with the check mark a couple of times.
Next? Oh, there was one that said next. So
yeah, next.
That would be it. Yes. So let's put a pin into it. We will return to it during Q&A. Okay, and I will show you how to do it. Abdul, is there a question or? Okay. So yeah, the after the break activity that we briefly looked at, it's not collaborative, and it doesn't have to be. Again, the task will spit out a collage of stories that you can turn into Mixtape and then share with whoever you want to share it with. What is particularly interesting, or could be interesting, is if you were to share something like that with students or instructors from your target culture. Which, if you know anyone who, teaches, I don't know, French, Japanese, Swahili in other locations here or abroad, or, maybe if you know any instructors who work in your respective countries, like that could be, it makes it a lot easier. But if you don't, then there is this new feature in Flipgrid. It's called Grid Pals, that makes this process a lot easier. So why should we be interested in it? Well, because it's a good opportunity to connect to authentic content, where you can also connect with instructors, and that could lead to other opportunities to sort of expand our already virtual boundary-less classroom into other domains. And then you can, by starting the collaboration, you can exchange things like these mixtapes or or even grades, right? So having said that, let's just take a quick look on what this feature looks like in Flipgrid. And so if you go to the top of the page, to the top bar, you will see that the very last button says Grid Pals. And if you click on it, you will be prompted to a page that looks something like this, right? By default, you already have a profile. If you've never used Grid Pals, then your profile is hidden. In order to use that feature, you would need to make it active, fill out a short bio. My location here, which is really important, is New York City. Click next. If you're on any of these social channels and would like to let people know that this is another way to communicate with you, you're welcome to fill out all these handles here. I'm not going to do that. And I will just click on become a grid pal. Okay, so now I'm active, right? And if you scroll down, you will see that there's a map here with a lot of green pluses. Every single one of these pluses is an educator with a Flipgrid account. There's obviously a lot of them in the United States, but let's say that I am now interested in connecting with someone who works in the German-speaking world. So we have Germany here. Let's maybe look at Austria. And I'm just gonna choose a random plus, this one here. And there you go. There's this Miranda, whom you can invite to collaborate with you if you want. There's a little blurb here that tells you where she works and what her subject areas are. Fortunately, her subject is language arts, which is great. We don't know what it is exactly, but that is fine, because another way to look up potential instructors to pair up with, team up with, would be by using these filters, where we can specify if we're looking for let's say university college, and subjects would be that we're interested in, could be world languages, and here you can choose multiple tags. It doesn't just have to be one, right? So multiple world languages and education, and the more tags you have, the more of these pluses will appear. And let's say that we're looking for German teacher, and strangely enough, it has not come up with any of them. Perhaps Flipgrid is not as popular as we would think it is, or maybe there are more German teachers in France, let's say. But you sort of get an idea of how this would this would operate. Once having sent out an invitation to another person, if that person accepts it, then an email exchange happens, and you guys get connected. And from there on out, you can collaborate using Flipgrid, but not just Flipgrid. Also other platforms and other means. So, in that sense, I think it's a pretty neat concept and pretty useful tool. Kind of social media-ish, but focusing entirely and almost exclusively on education. With that, so that about covers it. Unfortunately, I don't have any Flipgrid pals yet. Otherwise, I would have brought them in to participate today. But I don't teach, so it makes it a little bit more challenging for me. But I do encourage you to explore that and to let us know how successful you were. And since we are about 15 minutes away from the end of the hour, I wanted to share with you the last feature for today, which is called Flipgrid Shorts. Again, this is a new addition to the system, to the platform, and it just go back to the top of the page, and it lives on the top under the Shorts tab. One way to look at it is a camera, a tool that allows you to shoot short videos that are up to 10 minutes in length. They get stored on Flipgrid, and then you can also share them via link, or even include them with your Flipgrid, within your Flipgrid content. One thing that you can do, and I'm just gonna maybe hit this button here, is under options, you can record your screen too, which combined with the time limit of 10 minutes could be useful if you're interested in an easy way to sort of record instructions, or explain grammatical concepts, or going over vocabulary. This way you can use this already intuitive system to sort of affect that. So what I will do is I will just go ahead and record a short video, which, by the way, will also answer your question, Pascal, on how to save things. So I'm going to go ahead and record this short segment of the presentation, and I will pause the recording right here. And then I will go to next. Record this short segment. I really don't like to listen to myself, so I will pause right here. And let's say that I'm satisfied with this segment. I will click next. Okay, this will be a cover photo. I will not be giving a description, and I will just go ahead and confirm it. And just like that, it features in my shorts. So if you go through a similar process when recording contributions to the activity prompts, it will generate your content within that grid, right? So this is how you would save it, quote unquote. Okay, and I think that's pretty much it. That covers it. You see that once you've recorded your short, there's a little icon in the bottom right-hand corner where it allows you to copy the link, and with that copy, you can then share it with whoever you want to share it, or put it in Canvas, or yeah. So let me go back to the presentation, to the slide deck. And we are with shorts, and with about 15 minutes to spare, I think it would be good to take some questions if you guys have any. So feel free to unmute yourselves and let us know if there are any questions.
I've never used Flipgrid in class, and so I think I have an account for some reason, probably because I participated in workshops. So I suppose what I should really do is just play with it, experiment with it, and get to know the features, because when I looked at the account page, I didn't see all the things that you showed. So I suppose they are hidden somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be happy to help you with that.
Yeah, maybe because I feel like, I mean, I wouldn't be at all ready to tell my students, go and do it, because I have pretty much no idea how it works. But I mean, it's true. I mean, it doesn't seem very complicated. What are the restrictions? I mean, in terms of number of students, how many activities you?
And that's the beauty of it. It's
Yeah.
a completely entirely free tool.
And it doesn't have a paying version?
They used to, but after they had been acquired by Microsoft, they're open.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Good. And so you would recommend just pairing this up with Padlet?
It's just a suggestion.
Yeah.
What you could do with Padlet, but I wouldn't necessarily focus on the tools themselves as much as your pedagogical objectives, right? And what it is that you would want your students to be able to do at the end of the day, right? So if it's, in case of French, if it's being able to operate with conversational past and compositional past, then that would be a good combination maybe to look into. Yeah. But there are other, other applications. This is just a very narrow kind of idea of way
It's
to apply
kind
it.
of funny to see how you can ask the students to do something collaborative, but the way we did it, we didn't really collaborate. I mean, we didn't talk together. We just posted something, and then it was like, an exquisite corpse. There were things that were not really
Sure.
aligning, which can be it can be hilarious, actually. It can be funny, or you can say, okay, now that we have this, what would we need to change so that it becomes a coherent story? I mean, you could actually do a lot on, how do you make a story that works?
So right, so exactly. So you can either sort of build these instructions and this kind of scaffolding up front and tell students exactly what it is that you want them to do. Maybe divide them into groups, have them or ask them to communicate, to meaning negotiate, do it in target language, of course, come up with a story that is chronological and coherent, or do it the way I did it, which is kind of ask people to put something together, and then after you rework it in the target language, putting with reference to some cultural content, and maybe comparing it to what the future plans or whatever.
You could also ask the students to just find content on the internet and post it there or not. For example, if we were doing something on songs, and so you could just collect a number of song videos.
Yeah. So let's right. Let's.
You could ask the students to do their own versions of the songs. I mean, I don't know. You could do something interesting.
Yeah, so it's one of the things that we looked at 2 weeks ago, where we we downloaded a couple of videos from TikTok, and we uploaded those videos of individual contributions. But that could be, I mean, it doesn't have to be TikTok. It could be proper video clips or music videos. Yeah, it's very versatile for sure.
It seems to be,
yeah. So it's hi, Simon, Alessandra.
Hey, Alessandra.
Hi. So it's thank you for this presentation. So it's very interesting. So it's I'm very interested in these Flipgrid pals. So if I understand, if I got well, so it means that you can find friends or pals all over the world. In using Flipgrid, that in that moment are using Flipgrid, or they're using Flipgrid in general?
So the way that this works is that if you when you register as a grid pal, right, one of the things that you have to input is your location.
Mhm.
And that is sort of how the system pins you on the map. And if you're, and once you have the profile and your account is active as opposed to hidden,
Yeah.
that's when other people are able to find you.
So because so I was wondering if you create an activity where they have to find a pal in an Italian city and have a conversation about what this Italian city look like. I was wondering if which are the percentage of success to find a friend or to find a peer in that city. So considering the major Italian cities.
So I cannot really speak to the success because this is a new feature and I haven't used it beyond what I demonstrated today, and then some practice with it tomorrow, yesterday, sorry. But you know, it's maybe look at Italy.
Mhm. So it's, and then while we check, you check. So another question about security matters. So it's all the people registered on Flipgrid pals. So are they trusted people? So I'm always afraid to connect not people who are not who don't have no so good intentions, and so maybe they can look for, so they are still 18 years old kids. I don't know, so it's safe.
So the thing is that you can only connect with other educators.
Educator, okay.
Mhm. Um,
So
so
you don't, it's not only you can register only if you are an educator.
right.
Okay, so I only, so the Flipgrid, it's got pal like me. So for me, it's educator, professor, lecturer. So it's not for the students.
Mhm.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, should you decide to collaborate and do it in a way that, let's say, Lee and I did 2 weeks ago, where we co-piloted a Flipgrid activity, right? Then you would inevitably share the students, or have access to each other's students, which is the whole point, right? But as such, it tells you right here that you connect with fellow Flipgrid educators and classrooms.
Okay, so if I for example, if I want to connect my students with some other Italian students who live in Rome, I have to connect myself with the educator, and
Yes.
then we create. So it's like a new version of the pen pals. So it's when you had similar.
Yeah, could be conceived of that way. Yeah. Mhm.
So that you have another class, another group of students of the same level, of the same age in another country. So, and they have to, in this case, so they have different exchanges, but it's not writing postcards or letters. And, okay, thank you.
Right. So you would be able to expand it beyond just the traditional, letter postcard writing. Like you would be able to.
Yes, as you can send. So it's you can talk about the events in the different cities, and so from New York to
Mhm.
together. Okay, thank you so much.
Sure. Yeah, so in the context of this, like if you, let's say, if we were in spring break, then should you connect with someone, with an instructor in Italy, who may be interested in working with you, that you can forward them the mixtape that your students made, right, about their spring break experiences. Then that instructor can then show that mixtape to his or her students, and the two groups can exchange their experiences, and that way you are precipitating this intercultural communication too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Let's do something in the chat here. Okay, thank you, Pascal. Faculty meeting. Okay, very good. Okay, great. Anything else?
Yeah, I was looking at some of the profiles, and it seems to me like they're mostly middle school and high school teachers. That was my take on who they were.
So it's not, there are not many universities, because I understand, so that especially in Italy, so it's difficult to find university, college professors or university professors, especially with the language. Like, so I can, but I understand that I think that the last years of the high school in Italy are, so they are 18, 19, so they are the first years of college here, so it's not so.
Yeah, it's so, it would, like you said, it would depend on the realities of a specific culture or country that you're looking at. But, also, although ideally it would be great to connect with someone in Italy, I may just found Loretta Donadel, there you go, thank you, who is a university college in world languages, right? So it is, it is possible to find people like that, but also, you could likewise connect with people who are here within the United States. And it may be a little bit easier because I'm sure that other Italian instructors across
so
those region countrywide, and do a project or do something together with other students from other schools. But yeah, it will, at the end of the day, it will just depend on you and what it is that you are that you want to accomplish with the tool. Okay, so having said that, let me just escape this and go back over to our slides. If there are no more questions, I wanted to give the floor to Chris really quick to talk about what we have scheduled for Friday.
Yeah, Friday we're going to take on the topic of Zoom fatigue and try to tease apart, our own Zoom fatigue versus that of the students, and what we can do to try to alleviate it, and think about how to wrap up this semester in the best possible way, given the different types of fatigue that we're all experiencing.
Thank you, Chris. It should be a good conversation, definitely a useful topic. And we hope to see many of you in attendance on Friday. And on that note, it is almost 4 o'clock. We wanted to take a minute to wish you a good break if we don't get to see you on Friday. And we will be reconvening here in 2 weeks. Stay on the lookout for an announcement with events that we have planned for the weeks following the break. And that would be it. That would be all that we have for you for today. Thank you.